We like talking about everything growth related. At Badass Mavericks, we tackle fears and doubts head on. Overcome obstacles and thrive in all areas of your life. Here's your host, Brian Dewald.
Welcome to the Badass Maverick Show. Today is a dear friend of mine, super special guest, Mrs. Jane Floyd. Thank you for being here with me today.
Oh my gosh, Brian. It's my honor and my pleasure.
I'm super excited. We are going to talk about a lot today. We're going to talk about growth. We're going to talk about headspace. We're going to talk about just really kind of living your best life, right? You've been a student of some really, really amazing things for a really long time and taught others about it. So we're going to continue to teach those lessons to anybody that's listening today. So thanks again for joining.
My pleasure.
Cool. So BAM is the name of our show. It's Badass Mavericks, right? We talked about that a little bit. Maverick's the name of our company. And a maverick is someone who is unconventional and independent and doesn't think or behave as others do. So do you relate to independent or unconventional in any capacity?
All of it.
Do you?
At a high level.
Okay.
I always have.
I knew you were going to say that. So in what capacity?
The way my mind works,
okay.
Just even from a young age, Brian, just wanting more out of life, right? Okay. Being curious, just exploring. Okay. I mean, even through like I just there's so much this life has to give. Like I just even remember like in high school, I couldn't wait to get out because I was so bored. Not that I was that smart, but I just wanted.
wait. Just because you don't get good grades, I'm speaking to me, right? Just because you don't get good grades doesn't mean you're not smart.
I got good grades, but I just, because I wanted more. So you think of a maverick, unorthodox, let's break the ceiling of what people say we can do.
Sure. Yeah. And I was going to touch on this a little later, but since we're here, and this is a little maybe outside the box like this, but what's your nickname?
Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse. Yes. We'll get into that a little bit more. And that's the name of the boat, which is really exciting. So, cool. So we'll talk about some more of that later. In terms of what we're doing here, I have no idea what it's going to be, right? I have no idea. I'm not trying to build a podcast for a bunch of followers. I'm just trying to learn personally, right? Everybody I've talked to so far has been somebody I learned from. I've learned from you for a long time, way before we ever did any of this. So I'm just excited that you're here to share that with me. And, the whole goal for me is to touch one per. You and I have talked about this, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more about just helping one person, right? Touching one person, lifting a soul, whatever that looks like. So we're going to talk more about that later. But first, I want to, and I'll kind of add in my pieces, but will you tell the story about how we first connected and met?
Well, we first connected and met when you became my student. Yeah. I was a coach and coaching in the mortgage industry, and you were one of my students. Yeah. And from the first time we met, from the first phone call, there was just a connection because of, I think, innately who we are and what we want out of life and how we look at life. Right. Like you lift me up. Like I coached you, but in reality, I believe I learned more from you than you from me. So from that moment, and that was many years ago, we've just become just great friends. And you're someone that I can trust at a very high level.
Well, you're very sweet. This is your show. I'm just the host, so I appreciate that.
I'm here because of you, and I believe in you.
Well, I appreciate you, and that's awesome. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is stuff that both of us are big into, but I want to hear, a little bit of your story. So as you know, I'm a lifelong learner. What does that mean for you? So you mentioned, even getting out of high school and going but like you're still crushing it from like a knowledge, right? That's one of the things that you wake up every morning and look for, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I have this just insatiable desire to be better in every area of my life. Like I will believe I'll go to my grave with that desire. And you know what? It's funny. I did this exercise. It was really hard. And you have to write down things you like about yourself, right? And that when you dig deep, because I'm more like, I need to fix this and change this and be better at this. But when I really, really thought about it, like that was the number one thing I like about myself. I'm always just wanting to grow and learn. And I just think, you know, every day I just want to be a little bit better than I was yesterday.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's what is fun about like hanging around people like you for me, right? Is just like the circle that I want to surround myself with are folks like that are just hungry to get better really in kind of like every aspect.
Every aspect.
We'll talk about that a little bit more too. So I have this theory on mentors, right? I learned this a long time ago from somebody that we both know, but it just kind of stuck with me, that we should have a mindset coach, right? A business coach, a finance coach, a faith coach, a marriage coach, or mentors. Like, do you have any mentors that I know you've had a lot in your past, but what does that look like or mean to you?
Well, Brian, I couldn't agree more, with mentors, coaches in all areas, right? I mean, just because somebody's great they may be the best person in the world to advise us on finances and how to create wealth. And that's their forte, but you know, they may be super out of shape, which is real important to me, or they may, you know, have a bad marriage. So I'm not going to go to them for marriage counseling. Right. But I have so many, and have from the minute, like I could remember, right? Like, I mean, I go back, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, some, you remember them, but a lot of people don't. I mean, I have mentors that they don't know they're my mentors, right? Yeah. That even people that we know but that I listen to them because, man, I'm gonna like I'll just give you a good example. I've been meaning to call him all week. One is Jeremy Forcier. Oh, I love Jeremy. I adore that guy. Yeah, same. I adore him on all levels. So he could be a mentor on all levels. Agreed. But man, he doesn't even know. Like when he records something with Dave Savage or anywhere, like I just can't wait to listen to what he says and then take a little nugget and you know, execute on it. Mm-hmm. So I am just, because how else, Brian, are we going to grow?
Yeah. I don't know.
If we don't have mentors or surround ourselves with people that are going to stretch us.
Yep. And push us and want to help and see us succeed and see you win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I love that. So we had a lovely dinner last evening. You and Mr. Floyd took us out to a really lovely place with a yummy steak and all that. And I was learning a little bit about just like, let me figure out where to take this here. So of course you and I are both in the same industry, right? We're in the mortgage business, but this isn't a mortgage podcast by any means, right? It's a growth and a learning and a level up and we talk about everything on here from mental health to, you know, just big time growth or whatever the case is. And I love hearing stories about successes, right? So you and Hank have been married almost 44 years. Mm-hmm. Did I get that right?
Yes, 43. It'll be 44 this year.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Congratulations. Thank you. Like there's been lots of, I'm sure, ups and downs in there. And one of the things that I thought, like just literally on the spot, was what now would you tell yourselves when you were babies and got married back in your, what were you, 9 or 10 when you got married? Have you been married that long?
I was 21.
Okay.
He was 24.
I thought you were a little kid. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So like, what would be like for anybody listening that's just like, gosh, I'm, you know, I've been married a long time and, you know, maybe there's, of course there's ups and downs and stuff, but like, gosh, right now is a down time. Like, is there any kind of advice that you could share that would just be like earth shattering or some advice? But, you know, the question I asked you guys last night, and it was just on the spot, but I think it would be great to answer here, would be what advice would you give yourselves when you got married 43 and a half years ago?
Yeah. I mean, oh my God, that is such a great question. And my mind is spinning, but and again, I've learned more from the mistakes, but you can see by being around us, you know, Hank's my best friend. We have fun. You got to laugh, but it hasn't come without challenges and marriage counseling and all of that. Yep. But I mean, honestly, Brian, if I look back and I look back so I can answer that question on myself, but then I look at the sphere, people like there's just so many people struggling in their marriages. And so for me, it is really like, if I say one word, it's communication. The problem is, I believe in whether it's relationships, marriage, business, people just don't communicate their feelings and people don't listen. Right. Like, and I won't say, I know, I want to say, you know, I don't want to say just men and because women are the same, but, you know, really learning to listen and understand the needs of others. Right. I mean, let's be real. In most cases, you got married because you were hopefully madly in love with each other, right? Sure. And then, you know, hey, kids come, finances come, you know, life gets tough. And I think people just like want to be right. And so if I'm frustrated, and this has been probably for the past 20 years, like, we're going to talk about it. We're going to sit down and you can't attack. You did, right. Bringing up the past, you know, yesterday's gone. Like it is gone. Let it go. Right. We all have like regrets if we allow them in our lives. Right. I mean, on a day basis, sometimes, man, I wish I wouldn't have said that. Let me apologize really quick. Right. And the whole love and respect thing, I'm sure, but it's also bigger than that. And this is for me, Brian, like Christ is at the center of my marriage. Okay. Like I will tell you unequivocally, if he was not, I would not be married today. I would be divorced because the pressures of the world and when you go through things in life and then you're just like, I was selfish, right? Yeah. So I had to go to work. I had to go to work on me. Sure. Right. Yep. So just, I mean, if I had to just boil it down, it's again, just communicating the feelings and making time for each other. That's another thing that I was guilty of that way back when I first got in the career. Like you and I know it's insane and you become successful. And then I let my job, come before my family, you know, not proud of it, not proud of it, but I learned from it. Of course. Right. And then, you know, again, just getting counseling. Yeah. Man.
I love that. I love what you just said about, you know, the listening piece. Cause like for a lot of us, and we've been married since 2001. It's 2025. It'll be 24 years this year and together since we were 15. So like, there's a lot of our life together. And like for a long time, especially with some of the things, that my wife's dealt with, just mental challenges and mental health and stuff like that. Like I have really tried to get better at just listening. Like I should get STFU tattooed on my hand, which is shut the F up.
As should a lot of people.
But it's one of those things. Like I love that you said that because it's really good advice for somebody.
Yeah, I was included in that boat.
Yeah, like I'm a fixer, right?
Yeah, we're fixers.
Let's just
shut up and let me just tell you how to fix it.
Right. So a lot of and I'm trying to get better at this, and she can attest. Like, is this one of those things where you just want me to shut up and listen? And hopefully she just says yes, right? Because I'm like, oh, I really want to help, but I need to. So I think that's really great advice. Is that the communication piece is huge. What about when you get off track? Let's just say that and I'm asking this because I need this often. So when you're rolling along and then all of a sudden you realize that you're not rolling along like you want to be, or you have in the past, or like all of a sudden a year's gone by, you're like, oh my gosh, what the hell? How am I such a wreck? Like I was killing it 6 months ago or yesterday or 2 weeks ago or a year ago. Is there anything that you have as sort of an anchor, if you will, or a person or a process or something that just kind of helps you, you know what I'm saying? Get back on the track?
Person, process. But first, like I think, Brian, it's if I take a step back, if I'm looking through the lens of eternity, and not about productivity or notoriety, right? But I'm looking at like my why and what is my why, right? Which has been the same for many years, to positively impact and improve the lives that anyone God puts in my path every day, right? Yeah. So when I get off track, I have to go back to that lens, right? Okay. Yes. And so you said something a little bit ago, but like we want to fix everything. Like it's who we are innately, right? And so I have just really spent a lot of time in self-assessment, right? Okay. Just honestly, just working on me. Because 9 times out of 10, when I'm frustrated with something, it always has to do with a person. At the end of the day, it has, right. If you break the situation down, whether it's work, it's a loan, it's the client, it's whatever, it's somebody I'm in a relationship with, it has to do with the person. So I'm taking a step back and saying, okay, first of all, why am I a self-assessment, right? Why am I frustrated with this person? Because I am making assumptions. You know, that go back to the 4 agreements,
right.
like literally be impeccable with your words. Don't make assumptions. Don't take anything personal and be your best self. Like that for me is a guide. I go, okay, you're violating that right now. You're making major assumptions that Brian said this, but he meant this. And so, so I just go back and self-assess and
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And I try, and I've gotten good at it because, oh my God, if people knew how much I worked on myself, like literally, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, and I spend more and more time, but not to make emotional decisions or reactions, right? And that goes back to the whole marriage piece, right? Okay. Like, I mean, there's been times I literally want to just knock Hank's head off, right? But I've learned.
I'm sure my wife's thought that a handful of times, a few handfuls, maybe both hands, both feet, full of times.
Right. Yeah. And then I stop and I'm really thinking about it from his lens and his perspective and how is he feeling about this, or how's my employee feeling about this, or how's my friend feeling about this? Right. And then, you know what? My reaction is most of the time. And now if the next day I feel, really adamant about a situation, then I'll address it, but it'll be in a calm manner, right? It won't be reactional. It won't be with emotions. It'll be a one-on-one. Yep. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah. I'm like, my brain is just going like a million miles an hour. I wish I could write everything down as quickly as you just said it, because I could take the next hour and go off on kind of any of it. But I have all kinds of other stuff I want to ask you about. When did you realize, so you mentioned that you've done a lot of self-work, right? And it makes me think of, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Like we have to be in a good spot, right? Where did you learn that? And like, when did you recognize it? Has that been something that you've been working on a long time, or?
I'm really glad that you asked that question, Brian. You said you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. And right now I'm just speaking. I'm on this mission and to help other women to write.
We're going to talk about that.
Not that, I mean, I have, like, you're one of my very best friends on the planet, right? Sure, so, but I'm just saying women struggle more. Yeah. And the problem is so many people do. And even when I didn't really like myself years and years ago, when I just realized I was just going at this insane pace. Honestly, I fed myself first. And what that means for me is that's why I just have zero tolerance when somebody tells me they want to lose weight, but they don't have time. You know what? Yeah. No, that's a choice. Right. You don't want to make the time. Right. So for me, I believe that obviously mind, body, soul, but physically, I got to get enough sleep. Yeah. I got to sleep. That's number one. I've got to sleep for me to be able to be my best self. Agree. When I hit the ground every single day.
Do you track it? All right. So we're going to,
I do.
Because I do the same thing. What do you use for a tracker?
Well, actually, you asked, do I track it? I'm so old fashioned in archaic in so many ways, but I do have one of those rings. Okay. That I was wearing, but it was driving me crazy wearing it at night. Okay. So I'm not tracking the whole RAM and literally, Brian, it's so easy. Like 4:47 is what my alarm is set for.
4:47?
4:47.
Okay.
However, if let's say, and this happens, I wake up in the middle of the night and mind is spinning, I can't go back to sleep for an hour and a half, I will turn over, I will add a half hour to the clock because I know that I'm not going to be my best self tomorrow if I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
So that is just like that's like the number one thing.
I agree.
And then, the other thing, like most people I know that are fairly successful, and I define success as, you have joy in your life, right? So I'm not defining it from a monetary standpoint.
Right.
Yeah. But they have a morning routine.
Yeah.
And so you asked me,
my brain
your brain?
now, because you're like on every single, this is great. I love this.
So 30 years ago,
Okay.
30 years ago, here's my morning routine. Feet hit the floor and I brush my teeth and I'm out the door to the gym, straight to the gym. Okay. Right. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Sure. I'm just telling you, this is my routine and how I take care of my soul.
Perfect.
Now, it's different. Okay. I literally take about an hour every single morning. Okay. I read scripture. I journal, gratitude. Yes. We hear it ad nauseum, but at the end of the day, how can you have a bad day, be in a bad mood if you sit there and list all the things that you're grateful for?
So it's totally funny that you bring that up, because Annetta, my wife, was sitting, there's some sort of neurologically impossible way, and I'm butchering it. I'll have to ask her exactly what it means. Something along these lines, but it's impossible neurologically to be in a bad mood if you're grateful, like in the moment. Like it's just neurologically impossible. So,
I'm glad you said that. But you know what else is funny? And I actually did this last week because I can't stand myself if I'm in a bad mood. Like I want to be out of it in a minute, right? Same. Like I remember I was like, I don't remember. I was just so annoyed. And so I stopped and I looked in the mirror and I smiled. It was so fake. Yeah. It was so fake. Okay. But then I started genuinely laughing because it made me get over being in a bad mood or being annoyed with whatever the situation was. It's so funny that you say that.
Smiled at myself. I love it.
Oh God. Yeah. Oh yeah. Look in the mirror, smile.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Gosh, this is so fun. So you mentioned this a little bit, and I want to touch a little more on it, because there was something, and you've mentioned it here, and I know you've told me personally a handful of times last year. So here we are, January 2025, and in 24, you had an intent to. I'm going to butcher it, so I want you to take off with it, and then tell me what this year's idea looks like. But you had, which I love, and Annetta did this as well. You had a thing where it's like every day you wanted to make a positive impact in somebody's life, right? Like pick them up, make them smile, make their heart beat a little fast, whatever that looks like. Put that in your own words. What was your 2024 vision for helping others? Let
me just tell you what it looks like. And then I'll back into that.
Okay.
So let's just take this week. Today is Saturday. Yep. We're sitting here and I have literally, I can say this. I had the most productive, enriching week this week.
You told me that last night. Yeah.
I shared that at dinner.
That. Yeah.
And you have to leave me a few minutes to talk about how amazing your wife is. We need to and why? Okay.
Yeah.
So why? So like, what's different? Right.
Okay.
And back to my why, like I have this propensity to I want to cram too much into a day, into an hour. Okay. Right. It's just who I am. Okay. Right. And so what I've realized is that if I really want to positively impact, you have to be open, right? Like your mind has to, it doesn't mean I'm not structured in my schedule by any means, but it means less is more. So for example, this week, like when it's clearly everybody, the team. So like 2 hours a day, I do what's called a power hour, right? I think you do it too. Yep. Most of us do it, but there are like zero interruptions for that power hour. Mm-hmm. And then, so what's happened is because I'm allowing more time, like the people that I'm open to being aware of it's recognize who's God's putting in my life. Like, right. If I'm going at such a pace, like, oh my God, I got to get off this call because I got to get on the next one. And then I have this appointment. Like I'm allowing myself enough time to recognize those opportunities. And then with that, it just comes abundance. Like it's just, it's so crazy. Like I could go on and on with examples, but just of how like this week, just the people that God has put in my path because I'm open to it. And that goes back to, so you talked about last year, and it took me for 10 years at least, my team picks a word of the year.
Okay.
Really cool, you know, and then we all talk about it. And last year my word was prepared, right? Okay. And that's just because I'm always rushing. Like I'm always rushing because I want to fit too much into a day. Okay. This year, as I prayed and prayed and prayed and thought about it and got its clarity, and it's give me the clarity, right? Yeah. So that I know what you want to do with my gifts and my talents, right? Like give me the clarity. Okay. And so again, back to, I know my why. Yep. So, that's why this week and why this year and why I've never been, I mean, honestly, so excited about everything in my life, like, and everything, my marriage, my finances, everything. And then you go back to last year, and I just had so many distractions. Some I allowed, right? I allowed, then of course, others, 2 hurricanes,
couple hurricanes within a
back to back. I mean, that changed me, like that, like going through that. And you've been through it. Yeah. And then out of the blue, my husband needing to have, Hank needing to have triple bypass open heart surgery. But even like, so after the hurricanes, and I'm always into reevaluating time and energy. And so I did it again. I'm constantly doing it again. What needs to go in my life? And if you're open, you'll be very clear back to that person that wants to lose weight or wants to make their marriage better or whatever. The only way to do it is to make time for it. What you water grows, right? What you water grows. If I sit there and tell Hank, like, we need to be better, but we don't spend a minute on how are we going to get better? Or I don't hire a trainer. I'm actually even hiring a trainer. Even though, I'm a workout nut and freak, but I'm like, I want to be a little bit better,
a little more buff.
Yeah. So,
wow. I love that. What you water grows. And it can be said about anything. Really.
Anything, right?
Yeah. So when you talk about clarity is your word for 2025.
Yeah.
Do you have like a daily, like, come hell or high water, this is happening?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, it's so exciting right now because I always do different journals, read scripture, journal. And right now, I have an accountability partner, her, Shannon Schinkel, who is just become one of my best friends. I coached her and now honestly, like she thinks I coach her. She coaches me. I learn more from her than she does from me. Wow. So every single day it has your top things to do, your to-do list. And then it has your top priorities, right? Okay. And then it also has what 3 things do I need to give to God today? And then what's my prayer for today? Okay. So here's what's changed. So we said, what are we going to do? Just give each other a little check, wink, text at the end of the, and so I thought about it, I go, no, this is let's do this. And so what are we at? January, whatever. So we've been 15th, 16th, 17th, I don't even know what day it is anymore. 18th. So instead, we're sending pictures to each other. So obviously you got to do this someone that you trust because you're writing, what am I giving to God today? Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I started realize, so I'm sending her mine, and the to-do part has about, and then the top priorities, there's about 12 spots on there. Okay. So this is me. This is how my brain works. I've got all 12 filled out, like well, I noticed like at the day 1, day 2, I'm like, man, even some things, what do I give to God today? She'll have 1. She'll have 3 top priorities and 3 to-dos. And I know that sounds so silly, but it was such an aha to me that I don't have to have 12 on there, because the chances of me getting to 12. So now back to why was my week so good? Now, typically, sometimes there's more, but these top 3 things, boy, if they get done, right? Whatever, for example, one this week was I had to record something. If that gets done, if the 2-hour power hour gets done, sometimes there's some personal things. It's a win, right? My life is way better than it was yesterday. Yeah. So simplify and clarify, right? Clarity.
What's the name of the journal? Do you remember?
You know what?
Will you text it to me?
It's something blessings. I'll text it to you. It's so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to get better. I go through phases, but when speaking of Jeremy Forcier, he gave me this. It's called the 5-minute journal.
Well, so I have to, that's amazing. For Shayla Gifford gave me that.
Okay.
She was my second or third coach, which she's another mentor. And she gave me that. And for 10 years, like that, it's amazing. And I bought it for so many people. Nice. Right. Yeah. And so but then different ones come into your life and like what works, like the Morning Miracle people use it. Figure out you do you. Like my daughter-in-law always says to my son, you do you, boo. Right? That's like, cute. Yeah. I know. Yeah. Figure out what works for you.
Yeah. That's awesome. Boy, this is fun. There it is. Morning routine. You may have covered a little bit of this, but what's something that you're passionate about that we may not know?
I don't think this is a secret. I am so passionate about people understanding their finances and the power of living underneath your means and not the wants and the needs, right? Because the problem is so many people are trying to keep up with the world. Like I just don't compare myself with other people. Yeah. And I know people may say, well, that's easy to say, you're financially successful, but it wasn't always this way. And I wish someone would have taught me, Brian, like I will be forever indebted and grateful to Rick Ruby for my world
budget.
Like think about that. Like I was, successful in the industry's eyes in 2010. Right. Obviously we went through unbelievable downturn in 08, 09. Sure. But had I been taught what I've learned, I mean, it's not even like how much money I would have. And it's about like, I'm all about giving. So I'm really passionate about helping those who can't help themselves. So, but it really starts with understanding that, right? Living under your means, right? There's just timeless books on it. Sure. And I think that's like, we're just not taught it, Brian.
Sure. No, going all the way back to like anybody, right? Between, I've talked to my son about this. So you've met a handful of times. Alex, he's 21.
Who's just amazing. Yeah. He's a great kid.
He gets that from his mama.
Great parents.
We've had multiple conversations about credit and about, savings. And he's a good saver. He saves 12% or 20% of his net every paycheck. Like, you know what I mean? And he doesn't make a lot, but it doesn't matter. Like you said, it's not about, that. And it's, that's super good advice. So I want to touch just a tad on the mortgage side of things because, just because we're in the same industry. So I was in a room once with you and you were on stage, and these are the top 500 people in the country that are in this room. And you were referred to as the #1 loan rep in the country. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember a lot of these little, kind of things. So I know there's no secrets to hard work, but like what, if you could share your superpower, like what do you think that is? I kind of have an idea, but I want to see what your thoughts are.
First of all, I've never been the #1 loan rep in the country. So whoever said that was embellishing.
Well, but maybe not from a volume standpoint. I've done a nice compliment. I've done a
lot of volume, but honestly, it's resilience. Brian, like at the end of the day, just you go back to your word maverick, which I love. This is a hard, right now to me is 33 years in the business. Yeah. It's harder than it's ever been because multiple reasons, which the world knows. We don't need to talk about it.
Who cares?
But who cares? That's the point. Who cares? I just take, there's no excuses, right? I mean, what are the obstacles? You know what? control the controllables. And that's how I look at every day.
Yeah.
What can I control? Back to my schedule. I can control who I talk to, who I go after. If a borrower leaves me for a nickel, whatever, then I got to move on. Okay. Right. Yeah. And so, but I also think resilience and hard work. But I think that like the world right now just like thinks that, I'm going to get in this business or that business. I'm going to make so much money. And it's a crock pot. It's right. It's a crock pot, like slow, like
just fall out of the trees, right?
It doesn't just get out of a tree. Like when I fall out of a tree, when I first got in the business, Brian, like I'm so grateful I had a processor and I would go out on the streets every day and I would to cultivate business. I mean, back then you're excuse me, taking donuts, dropping rate sheets, you know. I mean, I didn't give up my milk run. Like I never gave up. And then I'd get back to my desk and she would have the files back on that I turned in the day before. And this I isn't dotted. This T isn't crossed. So what does that go back to? Communication, training, right? Sure. Yeah. So like, I was just trained at a crazy level. Yeah. So if you're struggling or like it's so much easier these days because if you can't, you and I are both big believers. We already talked about coaching, but say you can't afford it. There are so many podcasts that like what you're doing, but you go to like, listen to what are the top producers do? What are the daily disciplines, right? I mean, there's a bunch of them on this episode. I have a predictable, proven process, right? And I'm constantly reevaluating it, right? I mean, I empower my team to a crazy level. And I think, that's just kind of a different subtopic, but kind of the same, Brian. Yeah. Like I attribute it's not my success. It's the team's success. Like the longevity of the people you've met, pretty much everyone that works with me, man, it's not about me, it's about us, right? And serving that client and how do we serve that client to another level, Yeah,
that's huge. There was 3 P's in there. Predictable process. Was there another one?
Predictable, proven process. Yeah. Predictable, proven process. You just what is it? Yeah. Right? Like for example, I know my conversions, right? Yeah. I know. So my goal, I need to have 13 talk tos 5 days a week, right? Every day. So I can have 65 really impactful conversations. Perfect. Right? So I don't just show up on Monday morning and go, who am I going to call today? Right? I know exactly who I'm going to call, right?
And what you're going to say.
And what I'm going to say. Exactly. Yeah.
Gosh, that's all sorts of gold in those little pieces. What you were talking about in there a little bit reminded me about, I don't know if you heard Hank talking to Storm, our waiter last night. His name was Storm. Kind of a neat story.
When we first sat down, the coolest name ever.
Yeah, coolest name ever. And, Hank said something along the lines of maximum effort will get you paid, right? If you're the best freaking waiter in here, that's going to lead to something, right? Like it's really good advice when you talked about, the young people and, they think money's falling out of the trees and it's obviously it's not, right? But like that I thought that what you just said momentarily ago aligned with what Hank said last night. It's just a neat theory of just go out there, find some mentors, read some books, listen to some podcasts, rewind it, take notes, implement, right? Maximum effort will get you paid eventually. Right? Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're a freaking waiter or
it doesn't matter.
Whatever.
It's so funny you say that. And that sounds like Hank, because it's true. He's when I was a bartender in college and a waiter before that, like I wanted to be the best. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I made a ton of money waiting tables.
Made more than everybody else.
Right? Yeah. Because weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a weird combination of thoughts. Huh. Yeah. Okay. Shifting gears here a little bit. Tell me about an experience where you have had to have been brave.
I guess when you say brave, I'm saying, okay, so when you say brave, I've had, what I've been through with Hank, be brave and be an advocate. But I tell you, be brave and it's out of my control. And this goes back maybe only like 8 or 9 years ago. So when you say brave, I think I got to be brave because it's out of my control and there's nothing I can do. And my older son, who you know well, is mid-married now for 5 or 6 years. Incredible daughter-in-law, but he was in a 10-year relationship. It was so toxic. And he's the sweetest soul, right? Like sweetest soul. And it was totally out of my control, Brian. There was nothing I could do, right? But just give it to God. And when you say brave, and back to that time, Hank and I both went and talked to a counselor, Christian counselor, and I only had to go one time, and she gave me some amazing advice. But when I think of brave, that's brave because there's nothing I could do. I could have let it like continue. You're a parent. I think most of us would agree. Nothing is the old saying, you're only as happy as your, happiest child, right? But when your adult children are in pain and are going through something, like it was one of the worst things I've ever been through, dealing with that. And then having to every day, like show up and for my team and everything. And, I remember, I learned that's back when, and now I use it all the time. Like I would lay awake at night and try everything, pray, count sheep, do the whole thing. And then one night I memorized Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Okay. Do not be anxious in anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. And so I memorized that, and I mean for like over, and I would just recite it over and over again. And the day it worked out, God, I knew I had faith that it will work out, and I'll never forget that day as long as I live. And it did. And so that brave in a mental, right? In a mental, emotional status, right?
Yeah. Wow. Who do you think has had the biggest impact on your career from a mentorship standpoint?
I have to say, I still go back to Rick Ruby, because, I mean, honestly, it's a coaching program, and, there's seasons for everything. Everyone, God brings people into your life and he takes people out. But hands down, number one, Mighty Mouse, I mean, he named me that, right? Yeah. He did. It came from him. Yeah. And I named the boat, I named the boat that. Yep. And even though that the boys wanted some guy sport, nope. No. So, I love it. But yeah, I mean, if you had to say one, there's so many, but that would be the biggest. And again, it goes back to the finances too. Like, I mean, all of it.
Yeah. That's awesome. We talked about this a little bit. Of course, unbeknownst to you, you like already read my mind for what we wanted to talk about. That must be some sort of crazy superpower that you have, is like looking at me and determining what you think I want to hear. This is pretty interesting. So we talked about it a little bit. And so in my Monday team meeting, we go through W's and L's, wins, and what do you think the L stands for?
Losses, lose.
No, nope. We changed that to lessons.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's a good one.
So like, and a lot of it's to try and help Alex, right? Who's 21. And he's very wise beyond his years for his
he
age.
Is.
Right?
Yeah, he
so
really is.
He'll call me and be like, so this thing really upset me or whatever, but here's what I learned from it, right? Here's the lesson. And I'm like, what? So anyway, we go through this whole thing where everybody talks about a win for the week and then a lesson, right? How was something, what was a challenge that we learned from, or can we talk about as a group to learn from? So tell me about a challenge that has taught you something, a lesson.
Oh my goodness. Oh, there's just, so many.
What about, can I be nosy and ask you something I'm curious about?
Oh, ask me anything, because there's just I learned more from my mistakes. I'm trying to think what would be. Yeah, I'd rather. Yeah.
So I've gone through a little bit with my family history and things like that with some health stuff, and I've gone through it a little bit personally. You've had some big time wins and lessons when it comes to health. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, I think we need to we'll relate that to Hank and what I went through. But so, Hank was diagnosed, it'll be 7 years, which is unbelievable. He was supposed to have 6 months. Right. Crazy. So, like I had built this team. So I realized I had to be there, at a level of that I've never had to before, right?
And probably never guessed you would have to. Who does?
Who does?
Right.
Who does? Right.
Yeah.
And so, as I looked at it, and that's one of the times I go, okay, man, you did this really well. You built this team, and because I had to, be at the hot. Sure. That was all I could focus on.
Yep.
And you know me, I compartmentalize. When I'm at work, I'm at work. Yeah, I'm at work. And so, so fast forward, just his ups, his downs. And then I got diagnosed with breast cancer after he had relapsed and had to go in for a mastectomy when he was going in for CAR T. So, I think that if I had to tell you the biggest lesson that I learned from all of that, Brian, and is I never wanted to ask for help from anyone. I just when my kids sold stuff in school, I would just buy it all so that I don't
candy bars or whatever.
When one of my sons was born, I literally, my water broke at night. I didn't want to bother the doctor. I'm just I don't want to ask for help. Right. I love helping people.
I was going to say, which is so
it's
odd for you to say, because you're obsessed with helping others.
I am. Yeah. And then I realized what is first of all, the tribe that I had and the people that just showed up, just to help in multiple ways, Brian, right? I realized oh my God, I can't do it all myself, right? You have to use your resources.
Right.
And so I will be forever grateful, for those resources. And I think from that time on, and that's pretty pathetic that's later in life. And I think going back to what we talked about at the beginning, women feeling like they have to do everything, right?
Yeah.
That just illuminated my mind to believe that okay, look at just here's an example. 2 neighbors, and we lived in our other house at the time that, I was friends with, but they literally not what can I do? I'm coming over, I'm taking your dog out 4 times a day while you're at the hospital. The other one, once he got out, listen, I know you need to go back to work. I'm going to drive Hank to chemo, right? Wow. So the lesson was, oh my God, people are so good. They want to help. You're not the only one, Jane. Let people in and let people help because they want to, right? People are givers.
Sure.
So, that was a big lesson learned.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I know that's pretty personal stuff, so I appreciate you being.
There's nothing I won't share.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, I appreciate that. A few of my kind of favorite nuggets of the conversation. I love I wrote a few things down. What you water grows, right? And it doesn't matter what it is, in any capacity. It could be, your mindset, it could be your body, it could be your business, it could be, lots of different things. I love what you said about predictable, proven process. That's something that I probably heard a million times, but I wrote it down because it's just that's something that can be used often. And then the last thing that I really liked, it was earlier on when you said when you're in the bad mood, you smiled at yourself in the mirror, right? There's something about the power of positivity, right? Talking to yourself and there's Annetta knows way more about it than I do, but there's something neurological about that when you're excited and talking yourself up, that there's some
100%.
There's some great stuff in there. So how do, for folks that are listening that would like to connect with you, how would they do that? Are you on Instagram?
I am.
Are you on X? Do you have a Twitter?
I don't know.
I'm just teasing you. Can people follow you on Instagram?
They can.
Do you know your Instagram?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
We'll put a link to it somewhere here, and oops, I'm knocking stuff around. So we'll be able to help guide folks to your Instagram.
Yeah, no, happy to help anyone.
I follow your Instagram. It's very great. So hopefully folks can find you there. Yeah. How do you want to go on that? So pouring into others, I love that. And you're like the queen of that, right? And have taught other people to pour into others. So when it comes to that, like first of all, talk to me about why that's important to you. And then let's go into what you do to do that.
Yeah.
So what's your big why behind that?
That's a funny question. And this is funny when I think about it. Like I heard this 30 plus years ago from Zig Ziglar, sitting, who, God rest his amazing soul, just said, you can have everything you want in life if you just help enough people get what they want.
Oh, sure.
And I don't know, that just resonated with me. I just think that that's what makes, like, if people know how much you care about them, then it's scaling, right? It's scaling, like you want to help people, I want to help people. But if I'm pouring in to someone, I mentor some people, then they're going to pay it forward. And they're going to do the same thing, right? Because they may have never been taught. So I don't know. That's just extremely important. And then the how-to, that's easy to say, right? But you have to get really granular on, and again, like I know, okay, if my cup's full, it's full, right? Sure. So at any given point in time, there's mentoring, which is unpaid, and then there's coaching, which is paid. Sure. Like, how many people can I mentor or pour into at one time, right? And what does that look like, right? And so we have to figure out from a time perspective, how much time am I going to allow to do that? And then I think one of the things that looking at, I look at my business and my team, and again, just constantly learning, and growing, is like I've added more time on my calendar for my key people, right? Because it goes back to even the marriage thing. I just took Hank for granted. He's my husband. He'll be there when, he'll be there when I'm not busy. He'll be there when the kids are, you know what I mean? No, sure. He might not be, right? And so the same thing with my staff. So I really, a year or so ago, I kept adding, even if it's just like, 30-minute block every other week with key people, because now they feel so heard rather than my whirlwind self buzzing in. Hey, how are you? How was your weekend? What you doing this weekend? Love you. Thank you. I'm appreciative of you. But yeah, so I think just being intentional about who you pour into.
No, I think that's huge.
It's been a game changer.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And it's got to be fun when you start to see, when you're pouring into somebody, they pour into somebody else based on.
It's unbelievable.
I mean? That's the pay it for. That's the double pay it for.
It's so cool, and I'm seeing it in my office. Right now. Yeah, it's just life changing.
That's awesome.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Badass Mavericks. Remember that you have the potential and the superpower to achieve everything in life. All you must do is step out of your comfort zone, tap into your courageous self, and chase your dreams with a strong, positive mindset. For more inspiring conversations like this one, check out more episodes of the show at www.mavericklending.solutions.com. Do not stop this momentum of building the fulfilling life you truly deserve. That's all for now. See you on the next one.